Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 167 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, the DAP Network, if you will. I'm your host tonight, Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. With me in the side seat is Drew at DR_PRA. How are you tonight, Drew?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's a Thursday in December, like we were just saying, talking football. And I've got, we've got one of the people that I interact with on Twitter, I feel like a lot these days, Mike Stoyanov. Am I saying that right, Mike? Stoyanov?
Yeah, Mike Stoyanov. That's it. Stoyanov. I guess if we were in Ukraine or Bulgaria, it would be Stoyanov, but we're not. So, everyone calls me Stoyanov here.
Stoyanov it is. Awesome. Well, no, it's great having you on. I know we were talking about this before the show a little bit and via Twitter even this week. How you're not really big into Dynasty. You've been playing fantasy for a long time, though. So why don't you kind of get into some of your history of fantasy, and then we can pivot a little bit into, what we're going to be talking about tonight.
I mean, I love fantasy, and I have for a long, long time. I'm quite old. I mean, I started playing when, you'd get the paper on Monday and, pour over your stats. And, if something was wrong, you'd have to call. Or if you saw a guy you wanted to pick up, some news broke, you'd have to call the commissioner right away and be like, I want to pick this guy up. Did anyone call? I got him, right? It was seriously old school. And I go way back, and it was all redraft all the time for a long time. And then I dipped a toe in the water a few years back with a keeper league and an auction keeper league. And I was like, I love this because what we were talking about earlier about how redraft folk, around this time of year, you're like, oh, it's ending. You start to get really morose.
Yeah.
And, with a keeper league, it's not as intensive and it's not, it's just a little bit less than Dynasty, but you still get that, you're going to have some guys from before and you can build sort of a Dynasty and it's a lot of fun. But I am here to learn tonight about Dynasty. I mean, I understand the game, obviously, but I definitely will, defer to you guys, the experts in all things sort of.
I don't know if I want to call us experts.
Where are the experts?
I don't know. We're just junkies. We're just addicted to this
scale. Game. I mean, I'm just saying I know nothing. So to me, you guys are experts.
So
I guess that's
Mike, can you put a rough estimate on the number of years you've been playing fantasy football? Then
30 at least.
Okay.
I'd say.
Can you
probably even more? Probably closer to 35.
There you go.
I mean, I remember early Emmitt Smith. I remember Edger and James's rookie year. I remember someone taking him and I was like, rookie running back, good luck. This was before that was, same with a guy took Randy Moss. And it was like, hey man, you didn't draft rookie wide receivers. I mean, let me just fill you in. And then he literally changed that metric. So there's a lot. I've seen a lot of, I grew up in the world where it's if you don't have 3 great running backs, you're a fool. If you take anything other than running backs, and it took me a long time to sort of realize that the game has changed. That's not, what, maybe I should look, the wide receiver is the new running back,
Adapt with the times. Yeah, no, I love that.
And
I think too
from age, I just went, there's in people my age, when I first started playing, if you had a knee ACL, you were done. Your career was over. And it took to old timers a long time to sort of figure out. And I was always very reticent up until a few years ago of but that guy had an ACL. I just not ever going to be the same. And young kids are what are you even talking about, old man?
Wait, we got, speaking of old man too, we've got Aaron Rodgers about to come back from an Achilles injury. It seems like what the heck is that?
Insane.
That's bonkers to me. There's no way that happens, right?
I know insane. That's it. Just the advances in the sports medicine are really, really phenomenal. And that, was a learning curve for me for sure. As an old man who was anything happens to you on the field and you're done. You're done. Your career's over. Sorry.
My favorite thing as I've gotten older is I've been playing for probably 20 years or so myself. And I remember thinking at the time, these guys are older than me. They're, stronger than me. They're faster than me. And now I'm I'm older than them, but they're still stronger than me and faster than me. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm just older than them. And so the only real difference is when I say something oh, I don't know, that guy's old. He's 31. I'm like, oh my God, I just turned 42. You know what I mean? What the hell do I do?
Oh man, I wish I remember 42.
But that's what I'm saying. Age is relative too, right? But it's it's funny to talk about these players. And in Dynasty, we talk a lot about age and injuries do matter and things like that. But you hit on something I wanted to use, and maybe we can use this as a way in. You talked about dipping your toe into the keeper world. I think keeper was what got me started too, right? Like I was in redraft, I was in all these leagues, Scott Fishbowl, of course, which we'll get into. But then, of course, you get into the keeper leagues, you start getting into things that you can like hold on to your players over the next into the next
my
season.
Wife just came in. I had to. If anyone's wondering why I just stuck my tongue out,
Hi, wife.
Myself.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Well, no, I where I'm going with this, like, keeper is kind of that first idea, right? But you don't really have anything. You're not really doing anything in the off season most of the time. You're just kind of waiting for the next year to start. Well, in Dynasty, you can keep making trades, right? The championship of your fantasy league will happen in week 17 or 18 if you're ridiculous. And then trades open right back up in January, and you're going again, and you're making trades for rookie picks. And then the rookie draft happens in May usually, or June in some leagues, right? And then so like there's always something to do. So I guess I'm just curious, as someone who is into keeper, are you looking into Dynasty? Are you considering moving to Dynasty, or is it still just like I don't know if I'm there yet?
I honestly think because of my obsessive nature and my OCD tendencies, I'm a little afraid to go any further than keeper because I'm the commissioner in my keeper league now. So like by May, I'm already starting to look at like, oh, well, I got to compile the spreadsheets for everyone so they know how much everyone's going to cost and like, who am I going to keep? And like starting to like ruminate like already. If I were in Dynasty, it would be just, I would have no other life. And I actually like because I love video games and TV and movies and traveling and like I have other interests and I love having 3 or 4 months off where I'm just not. And now, like you said with Scott Fish, like by May, I'm starting to really think, and again, you hope for that invite every year, but you start thinking because it's sort of it's the beauty and the brilliance of it. It's like it kicks off the season and everyone knows about it and everyone's really into it. And Twitter like comes back to life like magic, like in June, like when the Scott Fish invites start going out and like, it's just so fun. But
Scott Fish is a terrific kickoff. Yeah.
Right. So long story short, I guess I'm a little afraid to go any deeper. And I think Dynasty would just be a little, it's like why I don't do baseball, like fantasy baseball. It's just too, first of all, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but secondly, the depth that you have to like the constant and it's just a little too much for me, I think. So I'm very happy.
I don't disagree, but I will say that once you crack that seal, like once you pop that top, it's hard to stop, right?
That's why I'm not popping.
I don't blame you. And I understand. I will say this though, I highly recommend getting into like at least a casual Dynasty league, something that you can kind of have in your back pocket. There are definitely some benefits to having a couple at least, and I say this to everybody that I talk to, where it's like it's nice to be able to like in March when free agency starts, like and kind of speculating on players, and you start hearing things, and you're like, Julio Jones might get signed by this team. Well, let me go send an offer real quick and let me see if it, like that's what makes it fun for me. Is it like the NFL season is 24/7, 365, and why not have fantasy the same way? So that's my mentality. I don't think you're wrong for playing it however you want to play it, but that's kind of where my head goes. And Drew, I guess I'm curious too. I don't know if I've talked to you exactly about this, but what was your gateway drug to Dynasty? Like, what was it that got you in? And are you glad you're here, or are you upset?
I feel that's a loaded question.
It is.
It's a similar, stair step to get there. My oldest league is a redraft league that I'm still in about 15 years later or so. With pretty much, it's a 10-team league, and I think 6 of the 10 of us are still together from when I started. So it's held on to some of the core folks, and it's one of the guys, his son plays with us now. So it's
there you go.
Kind of an extension of him. And we're starting to see some of that happen. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And then a couple of years into it, we changed it to a keeper league where we were able to keep a couple players each year, but you can only keep them for 1 year. So just added a little bit of strategy or trades each year. Like, hey, you know what? I'm out. Let me give you this guy that's producing for your playoff run. You give me the young guy that, I want as a keeper next year as a super late pick. And I feel like I get a head start on next season already. And then went into a 1 quarterback Dynasty league and got introduced to MFL that way. And from there, knew that I wanted to kind of blend the Dynasty with a 2 quarterback feel. And then that's kind of where I made my way to Superflex.
Yeah. It seems like you've done all of the different things, just like I kind of did. Same kind of process where it's like, all right, let me try one more wrinkle this year. Let me try one more wrinkle. Like you just, and that was probably back in 2018, I think was my first Dynasty season that I did. And I know before that I was in a keeper league for like 10 years before that. And I was that guy in our keeper league that just couldn't stop making trades. Like I would send so many offers, I would just spam the league, and to the point where I was getting frustrated that they weren't replying fast enough or they weren't sending me counters. So I'm like, I just need to join more leagues. And then that's what I did. And I've just gone too far the other way now. But
that increases your volume, more leagues.
Exactly. It scratches that itch much more as a junkie, right? I just need that hit. I just need that
I will say, as speaking of popping the top, I have sort of quasi-tentatively agreed to our Scott Fishbowl division. Krusty Burger we've all hit it off, and we're like, we should do a league. And so they're circulating the idea of a Dynasty best ball league. So I was like, all right, well, at least it's like a one and done. And like, so, but I am afraid that it's a gateway. It's a gateway league.
Well, I will say this: best ball is a lot easier, and I think that's probably the way to go for people that don't want to get addicted.
That's the only reason I was like, 'cause I don't want to be in. I'm in 4 leagues. I love it. You know, that's because I just don't want to like be rooting for and rooting against everyone every week. It's like that kind of spoils it for me. So I wanted to keep it.
I have a different opinion there because I like being able to not worry about players anymore. When I was only in 3 or 4 leagues, and I say only, I'm in 40 now. So like when I was in 3 or 4 leagues, it was like my whole day like swung on these certain players, and now I've got pretty much some of everybody. I'm just like, well, all right. It just makes football a little bit more fun and less stressful for me. I'm not saying that's for everybody because it's definitely
like stress
in other ways. But yeah, it's
like
great.
Stress and the living and dying with like a certain guys, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That was like me with Burrow this year, sadly. Well, I guess I have a couple of questions obviously in the show sheet, but I wanted to ask because Drew mentioned this too. Are you playing in any other than Scott Fishbowl? Are you playing in any other Superflex leagues? Like, do you feel like that's something that you're seeing more often? Or are you still in the 1 QB leagues? Like, what are you thinking?
I am only in one QB league, but the other 2 leagues are both 2 QB leagues, not Superflex leagues. Although I am tempted to switch mine to Superflex, but that it's essentially the same thing, and your ADP for QBs ends up basically the same. So it's like being in 3 Superflex leagues.
Nice.
Yeah, 2 QB is different. I will say that I'm in 1 2 tight end league, which is a little bit bonkers for me. Like you have to start 2 tight ends. Man, that tight end's already pretty bleak, and now I'm having to start a second one. It's just disgusting, but it's disgusting for everyone, right? Like that's kind of.
Well, I was going to add a tight end in the league I commissioned, and then instead of that, I just decided to add two more flex spots, which then made 8 or 10 tight ends startable. But you didn't have to. So I thought
that's the way to do it.
The answer, but
I like that. Yeah. I like that. And I think, Drew, you're probably in more Superflex leagues than 1 QB now. Would that be a fair statement, or is that not true?
Yeah, I don't have a single QB league.
I think I've got like 2 left. Yeah, I've got my home league, like my home Dynasty league is a 1 QB, the one that I've been in since the start. And those guys are kind of like what you said, Mike. They like being able to turn it off and like go live their life for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, And so when we get back together in June for the rookie draft, all of them are like, can we push this to August? Like, I'm just not ready, and I'm just like itching since May. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I want to get going now. Like, I've been waiting for this draft.
I'm going to run this league.
Exactly. Let's go. So yeah, that's always kind of interesting. The only other thing
a 1 QB league, it's like there's 20 guys that it's just a waste, I think. Like, I don't understand like why you
QB values are like nothing. I mean, like you can get like a QB anytime you want. And like I have in 1 league, I just traded Justin Herbert and Khalil Herbert for Joe Burrow right before he got hurt, of course. But I'm like, Herbert's playing like crap this year. And in 1 QB, I don't know, who cares? And then Khalil Herbert kind of like crap. And I'm like, I wanted Burrow. I've got Chase. I'm a Bengals fan. Like, let me have the stack.
There you go.
And then, of course, Burrow, throws his wrist out and done for the year. Brutal. But it's like, well, Herbert hasn't been great either. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know what in 1 QB, it's like, that's kind of a trade. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Like, I've got Stafford. I've got Baker Mayfield. Like, what am I doing with these guys on my bench? I don't like it. So, I'm definitely in the Superflex all over the place now. The last question I guess I wanted to ask or kind of discuss anyway was, and maybe it is a way to try to entice you to this, is something I put on the sheet, which is Redraft is Dynasty for most of the actual football season, right? Like Dynasty and Redraft are not any different at all in terms of scoring and format, like where all the stuff we're talking about, that's the same in Dynasty. It's just player values change and you have all off season and you have rookie picks. And so there's some of the wrinkles to it. It's not that different. And that's kind of where I wanted to land this plane was like, Redraft is a ton of fun. I have a couple of different redraft leagues that I'm in.
Right.
I just prefer Dynasty because I don't like having to start over. I feel like I can gain an advantage, and I don't want to give that advantage up and start
Sure.
over every year. So,
Yeah.
like, if you really pay attention, if you're really into this and follow NFL all year long, I feel like Dynasty is just the easy answer.
Right.
Well, what do you think, Drew? Am I on the right track here, or am I crazy?
Yeah, it's when I was starting to accumulate leagues and I was in, 3 or 4 at a time here, and a couple were redraft and a couple were dynasty. I think I appreciated at that point that I felt like the dynasty aspect helped with my redraft, honestly. So
Bingo.
after a couple of seasons of doing both, I ended up winning my redraft league, back-to-back years, because I was able to maybe find a little bit more value in the draft
Right.
process. And like you were saying, Mike, earlier, some of the other guys in the league maybe weren't as quick to say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk on this rookie. But you know what, I'm willing to take him in the 8th round now and go for the upside there versus do what everybody else is going to do, which is wait till double-digit rounds. So that was kind of a competitive advantage when it comes to the redraft part. And then, yeah, I think there's, I go back to the video games, right? Like growing up playing Madden, and it was always, I want to do a franchise mode. I want to go here and take my, whether I draft my team or whether I start, with whatever team that I want to start with. And I want to see what this team looks like in 6-7 seasons. And I would do that in a semester at college and like blow through.
Sure.
I love
and it
that.
was always, you kind of go back and like the nerd in us. Okay, where did I start? What were the iterations to get to the team that I have now? And, it's even then, this was before online was a big thing. It was just, okay, this is what's saved on my memory card, but it's pretty cool to look back and see. So I think that's kind of what made me want to stick with the dynasty piece. At this point, yeah, I think because of the volume of the leagues, I'm in about half as many as you are, Andrew. But with what's going on Twitter and kind of the community growing there, you can have as much or as little interaction with that as you want. And as you see stuff happen, then hey, yeah, you know what? I let that sit for a couple of weeks. I'll take my break after the championship weeks. But then it's, I wonder what's going on. Let me scroll through. Let me go back through the timeline and see. And then, oh, you know what? Like you said, Andrew, I'm going to go and I'm going to just see, kick the tires on this player here. I wonder if everybody else is paying attention or if I can kind of maybe slide one through under the radar and come out with a little bit of extra value. But yeah, I really enjoy that for the dynasty piece. But I would agree, Mike. I think everybody kind of goes through their own journey with the dynasty relationship, where I definitely had a couple of seasons where it was way too intense and it was way too obsessive. And, I've had to kind of pull back and find whatever my sweet spot is for whether it's the volume of activity that I want, or if it's the mixture of league mates that I'm looking for, the format of the league that you want. And once you find that sweet spot and kind of figure out what your relationship should look like, then, you'll manage it the way you want to. But you can always get out of leagues too. I think that's the other part some folks forget is, you make a commitment like with your SFB group. You do a couple seasons of the best ball. If it's not for you, it's not for you.
Exactly.
Bingo. Yeah.
So
that's what I was even going to say, like, just in general about Dynasty. I've had a couple people that I got into Dynasty that after one season are like, it's just too much. I'm like, that's cool. Thanks for trying it out.
Yeah.
Some people love it. Some people don't.
Turnover rate for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And those orphans are fun too. Honestly, like that. I've said this to a couple of friends of mine. One of them is thinking about getting into Dynasty, and there's an orphan team in the home league that I commissioned. And I'm like, dude, you'd be great for this team. Like, getting in on an orphan. And he's like, well, it's a really bad team. I'm like, exactly. There's no pressure for you to win. Like, you just get to come in and make moves. Like, that's the best way to come in. Like, blow it up. Like, it's nothing but action. Like, that's the best to me. Like, I love taking over orphans. It's to the point now where, like, I really don't think I'm going to do another Dynasty startup unless I absolutely have to. Like, give me a crappy team that I can build from scratch over 3 years. That's just more my style. So again, there's no wrong way to play. And that's what I love about that. Is that redraft, everybody starts over. I like having an advantage and being like plugged in, but you're entirely right. If you don't want to be plugged in, then maybe Dynasty's not the right fit. That's perfectly fine too.
I remember going over to a friend's house one time and I was like, oh man, you've got Madden. Let's play. And he was like, oh man, I don't play. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
No, I just manage through seasons. I was like, what are you talking about? It's a video game. I literally didn't understand, but now I know he must have been like a Dynasty guy or like
It's funny.
He's a franchise guy. I remember doing that when I was unemployed.
Play Madden. He GMs a team.
Yeah. There was a time where I was unemployed living in Chicago, and I think it was like 3 days straight. I barely slept, and I just like managed 10 seasons worth of Madden. Just like binged Madden for like 3 days straight. It was awesome. Like that was still one of my
good. It's good analytics, probably. You see, because it's the real players, and they're sort of factored, as to what they're likely to do. You probably can get some decent ideas off of it.
Yeah, and that was, again, like Drew said it perfectly. That was the precursor to me being like a Dynasty fan. Like I should have known. Like, you know what I mean? Like, of course I am. Like I'm the franchise person. That's always been
Right.
my game, and kind of playing the long game. And I like seeing
Right.
things build. I like building things up and making them my own, and blowing things up and all that. So that's the fun part for me. So I guess with that, we'll move on. But I'm curious, Mike. Did we make a difference? Did we move the needle at all? Are you thinking maybe Dynasty might be something you want to try now, or no?
Well, I mean, I was resistant to even being in a keeper league, and now the keeper league I'm in, you keep 4, and you can keep them the original year plus 3 more. So that's
Okay.
you got a really solid
Getting
core,
close.
and like
Yeah.
if you've done it right, you can be good for several years in a row, like just before the draft ever starts. So it's pretty close, but I think we'll try this Dynasty Best Ball, and we'll see.
I like it.
We'll see where we're at. I'm probably going to be GMing on Madden like within a few months.
I'll share with you, Mike. You know, a lot of the Dynasty experts out there will tell you play Dynasty in like a 3-year window. So it sounds like your keeper league is kind of fitting right into that anyway.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you might be further along into it than you might give yourself credit for.
That's
true. Let me ask you this: from the outside looking in, it looks like there's like some people just seem like they're addicted to rebuilding. Like I just see like Twitter is just filled with like I'm rebuilding. Like everyone's rebuilding all the time, and I'm like, are you planning to rebuild to the point where you challenge for the title? Because otherwise, what the hell is the point?
As long as they pay their dues.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't care.
God.
I love when people are rebuilding in my leagues because they're the ones blowing it up and trading away for the future, and I'll take the points. You know what I mean? So, like I'm sure. So yeah, like there are definitely people that I play with even that are in a perpetual rebuild. They just are constantly churning and are rebuilding all the time. I'm in a trade addicts league, and that's one of the things that I tend to do in there is that I'm just constantly rebuilding because like I'm in the middle, and everybody in there is trading all the time because we're all trade addicts, and we love that podcast sister show of ours and everything. And it's just Russ makes it so much of a fun thing, like trading all the time. So that's different to me. But in general, yeah, you should definitely be trading with a purpose to get better and to go for the title. That's the point, right?
Not just to like accumulating massive amounts of draft picks. And then
and that can be fun too, but then you got to hit on the picks, and then you got to have them hit, and then you got to go like win it that year or something. Like, but that's one of the many like 75 different strategies that there is in Dynasty, right? And it's you're actually Drew's putting it perfectly. You're already kind of doing the hardest part of it anyway. You're keeping the 3 or 4 years. You're keeping the good players for 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those guys are being kept, and that's basically what Dynasty is anyway. Because the other guys you're trading and dropping and adding and whatever. Yeah, so like you've got the biggest chunk of it. So I'm telling you, it's not going to be that difficult for you to do it. I think once you get in, you'll be like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. That's all I'm going to say.
I just am afraid I'm going to end up on a street corner being like, hey, man, you got a 2nd round pick, 2026?
Well, again, you're in the right place for that, Mike. This is definitely I'll send you a 2nd round pick for free, Mike. If you get to that point, I will send you a second. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Good, man, because I need it bad.
I just need it, man.
I need more than picks.
Jonesing. Yeah. You're in the right place. But with that, we're going to pivot to our next segment of the show, which is really more of like a looking back and looking ahead. And this is definitely a little bit more redraft centric, which is why I think, again, it's perfect for this. Looking back at week 13, looking ahead to week 14. Week 13 had some pretty interesting scores. I would say like the QB1 was Geno Smith. Like what? Debo and DK both blew up against the Cowboys. But like, again, Debo and DK both blew up. Like if you had either one of them, you were happy. I know that there were definitely some people that didn't start one or both of them, which I thought was hilarious. But again, like just what a wild week. And even then, like Tyreek had a great game. I know I had him in a couple leagues, him and 2 I've gotten a stack. My guy, Jake Browning, comes out of nowhere for the Bengals as a backup and blows up. So I guess, Mike, was there anybody in week 13 that stood out to you that I haven't mentioned, or anybody of those guys you even want to dive into further that you were just shocked to see?
I had a piece of a lot of those guys and was very pleased, of course. I played DK and Lamb against like the top guy in that league. So like I started out with 70 points, which was awesome, but I didn't play Geno because why would I? And like he'd been off. He's coming into Dallas. Like that just, I was praying that like DK would be a 10, like, so yeah. But Sam Laporta comes to mind. He's just been phenomenal, man. He's like what we thought Pitts could be his rookie year, but he's actually doing it. Like he's probably gonna have 1,000 yards, right? And he's gonna have like 10 TDs, and like he's just been so money.
unreal.
And like, again, he just lit it up in week 13, and like no one was more pleased than me.
Laporta's a good pick. Yeah. Drew, anybody that stood out for you, I guess, on top of that list that we've given up for week 13 accolades in your world?
I'm looking at my home Dynasty league that I helped commish, and I was the second highest scoring team this week. And unfortunately, I drew the highest scoring team.
Oh,
So I
bad
lost.
beat when that happens.
I lost by 5 points. And if I had started your boy, Jake Browning, instead of one Jalen Hurts, I would have won my week.
And
Why
no
didn't you
one
tell
would do
me?
that.
That's just like, you can't be mad at that, because that's just not something any
Man.
rational human being would ever do.
Man, that's I'd apologize, but I had nothing to do with it. But yeah, I've been there. That hurts. That hurts. Yeah.
But yeah, it was.
It's like when
it
you
was
do
good to
everything
see-
right and lose. Oh.
Yeah, it was good to see. Kyron Williams continued doing well, which was nice. He came back last week, had a huge week, and then this week it was good to see him follow that up with a solid performance. So a couple of guys that might be kind of the league winner category for you if you had picked him up late, gotten him off waivers early or something like that. So yeah, that was good to see him. I got him in a couple of leagues where I'll need everything I can from him if I want to be serious about the playoffs. So hoping that continues for the next few weeks.
I like that. There was one other name I wanted to mention, which was Devon Achane coming back, or Chan. Sorry. Like, I know a lot of people were concerned about him last week with the, did he retweak it? Is he going to be out again? I mean, he ends up as the 6th rated running back in the week and standard scoring anyway, with 17 rushes, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'll take that. Heck yeah! Like, those Dolphins are just running all over the place, and if Achane can keep that up, and I got him in. I think I've only got him in one league, and it's a keeper league, right? And it's just like I have him as a 13th round keeper or something like that. Like, I'm pretty happy with that.
Nice.
So that could be a game changer next season if I don't win it this year, which I'm not getting ahead of myself, but that could help. Those kind of picks, those later picks and keepers can really dominate. So that's kind of nice.
I'm curious.
Him and Gibbs and Bijan, like, they're looking like that running back class is looking a lot stronger. Those three could all be superstars, and then in the league for a while. Like, that's an amazing.
Well, even like Charbonnet hasn't looked terrible. He just hasn't had the full opportunity.
He just hasn't had the opportunity, but he could go too. Like, sure.
He had a good week too. He finished his RB11, right? That's not bad for a rookie. Sure. Yeah, solid draft class, definitely.
Where are you guys on Nico Collins at this point? Now that Tank Dell's hurt and out for the season, do you think he just happened to pick up the slack last week? Do you think he gets hot again for the playoff run here? Do you think somebody else steps up for the Texans there?
I him. I think Nico's real.
Yeah, for sure. I think someone will step up in support, but and Dalton Schultz will come back, we assume. But like, I think Nico's the real deal, and like he was great early on, and then sort of Dell emerged, and he was then sort of good intermittently, and then now he's sort of on the rise again, and I think he's super talented, and he's like big and rangy and a great target, and Stroud loves him. Like, I may be biased to have him in half my teams, but I certainly hope he's great for the rest of the year.
I'm with you. I know. I think Nico's going to be the main guy. And you said Dalton Schultz. That was the other name I wanted to mention, because after that, it gets kind of bleak, right? You've got the ghost of Robert Woods, who's really just not himself. He's getting older. And again, I hate saying older as someone who's old. But then you got John Mechie, who is supposed to be something and got one catch, on 3 targets. Like, he did something, but nothing worth mentioning. And then obviously Noah Brown has had a couple of weeks that he blew up, right? So like, maybe Noah Brown gets another look, and got 0 last week and on 2 targets. Like, so there is some potential there for some other guys, but I'm not putting any of them in my lineup. Nico Collins should get the funnel. Like, that's going to be terrific.
I think a strong indicator is that they throw him like 3 screens a game. Like, that's 3 like instant, targets and catches. Like, if they keep that up, I just think that he's going to be, and if they just keep playing at the level they're playing, I think he's, like you said, a potential like league winner, or at least a helper, a league winner helper at least.
Yeah. League winner helper is work. I like that. And kind of looking ahead too. Using that as a pivot. I talked about Tyreek. I think the Dolphins are kind of dominating right now in a lot of ways. I guess I'm a little concerned about Jalen Waddle not getting more. I felt like it would be a more of a 1A, 1B, and it's very clearly a 1 and 2. It doesn't seem like Waddle has really been getting that much attention, and maybe that's rightfully so, right? Because Tyreek Hill is amazing. and he's going for 2,000 yards, and I think he can do it. I don't think there's not a lot of people that you can put that on. But I mean, Waddle has been kind of quiet, and I mean, he'll have his game here and there. We've seen that, but I was expecting Waddle to still be a top 10 receiver, and that does not seem to be happening. It seems like Tyreek has taken all of that attention. So I'm a little nervous about Waddle, but I'm loving Tyreek right now.
I think it's a combination of Hill, but also the running game is so freaking phenomenal. That is also eating into everyone else's production but Hill. Like they're so good and they're all so fast. It's like 4 of the 6 fastest guys in the league are on that offense. Yeah. It's insane.
Drew probably knows this. It's like a cheat code in Madden. Just go get the fast guys because they can. Everything else they can learn, right? But you can't learn speed. So like speed is the one thing I would always draft for in Madden franchise mode all the time. Just be like, oh, he's a A+ speed. I'll take that guy. We can figure it out. And then
you never hear scouts say, "I don't like that guy. He's too fast."
Yeah. I don't think he can catch. It doesn't matter. We could teach him that. Just let him run. Go Forrest, go. Yeah. No, and that's why I think the Dolphins are just dominating this year because they just got speed at every position and they're not afraid to use it. Drew, is there anybody you're looking ahead to week 14 and are kind of like curious about how their outlook's going to be as the playoffs approach here?
Yeah, I've got a handful of teams that I desperately need Justin Jefferson to come back at 100% ready to go. And I need Josh Dobbs to know his name.
Josh to Justin hopefully can connect. We do have 2 teams on a bye. I guess I wanted to mention that for anyone listening that hasn't put this together. Arizona Cardinals and Washington Commanders, the last 2 teams in the NFL with byes. Finally, after this, we're done with it. I know that there are some leagues that I'm in that have their playoffs starting this week, and one of those I have Kyler Murray, and I'm like, I didn't plan that ahead at all. That's the downside to being in too many leagues. I didn't look at it. I didn't know. But that's okay. It's part of the game. But I am the number 1 seed, of course, because I've had Kyler Murray and other players, like doing well for me all year, and now I have to figure out how to deal with that. No, actually, this one is the accumulated score. So it's like weeks 14 and 15 combined for a score, and then the top 4 of the 6 advance. Like, I think it's a really clever idea.
Yeah, kind of like Scott Fish.
Yeah. It's kind of like trying to make it so that the best teams advance, and then after that, the 4 teams get into a bracket. So it's kind of a way to eliminate some of, or I guess reduce, not eliminate, but reduce some of that luck factor in the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. And that's why it starts this week and not just next week. So you get 2 weeks to build a team. I dig it. But there are some other, obviously some other players. I'm curious to see what Jake Browning does this week, right? We were talking about him. He dominated last week, but the week before that was pretty terrible. Like, will the real Jake Browning please stand up? You know what I mean? Like, which one are we going to get now? And especially now, there's a lot of players, a lot of fantasy managers at this point that are going to need Jake Browning, right? Where he did well last week. They probably had him on the bench, like we were just talking about, because why would you bench him you wouldn't bench Hurts for Browning. That makes zero sense. Are you considering that this week? Hell no. But at the same time, if you don't have anybody better, or let's say you started, I don't know, Baker Mayfield instead of Jake Browning. I mean, which would you rather start this week, Drew? Baker Mayfield, Matt Stafford, Jake Browning? Which one are you leaning on now, knowing what you got from Browning?
Out of those 3, I'd probably start Stafford first. It's a weird roller coaster ride here, right? Because it's his first game in when he maybe wasn't as prepared, didn't realize that it was going to be his car to drive. Second week, full week to prepare. They I'm sure planned some things based on what he's good at, trying to take away and limit some of the things he's not. And then he was able to come out with very little tape for them to be able to look at. And now you have a little bit more of a body of work that the defense can look at and see. So I would say, the easy answer is it's probably in between the 2 games somewhere. I would like to think that he probably leans closer to last week than his first week. So between him and Baker, I would be fine starting Jake Browning. I think, Baker he's helped Mike Evans get another 1,000-yard season. But that's about it. He hasn't supported both Evans and Godwin the way that I think people are hoping that Godwin would be, a part of things. So I would probably be fine starting Browning over Baker this week. But if I had, Stafford in the hopper as well, I think I probably prefer Stafford just a little bit
higher
over
floor to higher ceiling kind of a thing, right? Yeah,
probably. But even then, Stafford had a pretty decent week last week as well. He didn't score as much as Browning, I don't think. But shout out to Browning and Chase. Those 2 got me into the next week of Scott Fishbowl. I had to start Browning last week because who did I have? I had somebody out on bye, and I lost Cousins and whatever. So thank you, Cincinnati.
That's right. We're glad we could help. I know that I know that Jake Browning is going to be one of those guys that I could see it now. It's Jake Browning versus Gardner Minshew is not the game we expected. I know when I got my season tickets, I was like Burrow versus Anthony Richardson. Like that game's going to be amazing. Like I'm looking forward to it. Nope, we've got a different one, and there's a bunch of those
that far
matchups.
forward in the NFL. Are you insane?
No.
Just
of course. What was I thinking? But we got like Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky tonight, right? We've got Josh Dobbs versus Aiden O'Connell. We've got potentially CJ Beathard versus Joe Flacco. Like again, like what? Like these are matchups we have to worry about. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting week. I think that there's a lot of points to be on the board, and it's just going to be about honestly getting lucky and just picking the right guy. You know, that's kind of fantasy in a nutshell, right? Like there is a lot of skill, but anybody who tells you it's all skill is lying to you, and they're probably selling you something. Because there is still a fair amount of luck. And without that luck, I think this game would be very boring. I know I've talked about that before, but that luck factor and kind of like that anybody can win any given Sunday kind of thing kind of makes it fun. You know, like if it was always predictable, I wouldn't be as interested. You know, like the chaos is sort of what I'm here for. We love drama, right?
Right.
It's a good drama, the NFL.
If you want,
anything else you guys want to cover?
All skill, no luck, play chess.
There you go.
There's no luck involved. It's all
rock, paper, scissors. Oh, wait, no, that's the other. Yeah, exactly. All skill is chess.
Not every other game in creation, though, there's a mixture of some probability and some luck, though.
Yeah. You have to. It just that's the human nature of it. And again, that drama, we just love that drama. All right, so we're going to get to the next segment here tonight. We're going to talk about some listener league updates. I know Rocky doesn't like to give these, and it's fine. But I like to at least let people know what's going on. So this one, I'm going to start with the record. In Dynasty Junkies 1, we are second. Our joint team with Rocky, myself and Rocky, I should say, is second at 15-6. We're tied with Funky Bunch. Jerry Shea is in the lead at 17-4. But this league, it's interesting because, like I said, we're tied with Funky Bunch at second. And Funky Bunch made 2 trades this week for points. And this is something I think is a terrific move. And I'm nervous about it now because this is going to be tough for us. So first trade he made, well, I think it was the second one, but still, first trade in there on the sheet is he sent his second for Zach Moss, Tyler Boyd, and a third. Drew, what are your thoughts on this trade in terms of dynasty value? I mean, obviously the point side, the Zach Moss and Tyler Boyd makes sense, but is that a fair value to get all that for 1 second?
It's yeah. Short answer, yeah. I think it's good. Yeah,
I love the build up for yeah.
I don't think for those pieces, it's certainly you can see the motivation behind the move, and this is the time too where you start sending whatever it takes to get some things done. I just sent a future second to get Chuba Hubbard in a league.
There you go.
Just because I need some depth. I've got Pacheco as my RB2.
I mean, he could be sneaky good to finish the season.
So I hope he pans out for this year, and if he happens to be in a timeshare next year, then I'll feel even better about it. But I'm sure there are people that have different thoughts about that. So you get what you need or what you think you need for your team. So no, I have no problem with that kind of a trade or that kind of.
All right. Well, I know it's a dynasty trade that involves picks, as does the next one. But I guess, Mike, I'm curious. Do you think Zach Moss is the real deal? Do you think Tyler Boyd is someone you want to start? Like,
I see so he's doing this. He's doing this basically to get Moss right for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
I mean, because Tyler Boyd, to me, I mean, I know you guys have deeper rosters and stuff, but he's just a guy. Like he's
just a guy.
I can't even imagine in dynasties being pleased that he's found his way into your starting lineup. So
I'm never happy when I'm starting Tyler Boyd. No, that's something has gone wrong, unfortunately.
Acquire Moss, and Moss this could be good beyond this year, but Moss, we know that this is his 4th year or 3rd year in the league. 4th year, I think.
4th, I think.
He did not show us anything ever really in regard to like being a star player until this year. So either he's figured it out or he's having sort of a flash in the pan moment, and that'll be TBD. But I could see, giving up a second to get a third back and then to get Moss to start for your playoff run. I see what he's doing here, I think. But I don't know
if it's a fair trade to me too, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the values in this. Like, I would rather have the points if I'm second and going for a title. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably a late second. It's my own.
Like, right? Moss is going to start for him.
Probably, yeah. And so then the other thing too, though, is like that. Well, yeah, but even then, like, let's say he is. I mean, I would assume so with a trade like this. You're most likely trying to upgrade your lineup. Upgrading your bench doesn't help much. But at the same time, trading that late second, which is like the 22nd best rookie, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're looking at players that aren't really much at all. Like you don't know what you're getting into, right? There's so
Right.
much more risk at that level. So, and you're getting a third back from a team that is worse than you. So you're really only trading back, let's say 5 to 8 picks. You know what I mean? You're going from like the 210 to the 306, maybe something like that. So like, I don't know, like even if you're trading back 8 spots and you're adding points for this year, that seems like a no brainer.
Yeah.
So I like that trade a lot too. And again, I was like, doggone it, that's a good trade I should have made. The other one that Funky Bunch did with a different trading partner, this one he traded pretty much the rest of his picks. He had his 25 first and then 2 24 thirds to Dr. Toboggan for Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston, and T. Higgins. Now, this one, again, I'm looking at this like a first and 2 thirds for T. Higgins feels fair. Like, man, I think T has still got some value. I know he's had a little bit of a rough year, of course, being injured and all this, and we're not sure if he's going to stay with my Bengals or not, right? But even if he's still young, he's 25 or something like that. He's still got a lot of potential, a lot of future point values. And then you're also getting 2 quarterbacks, which now are 2 starting quarterbacks. Minshew, we knew, but 2 starting quarterbacks and T. Higgins for a 25 first and 2 thirds. Again, I felt like he fleeced the guy on this one. I'm like, man, Funky Bunch wins again. Like, this is a terrific trade. So, Mike, I'll kick it to you just to say, like, in the sense of, well, what do you think about T. Higgins? Maybe let's start there, and then we can talk about.
I mean, he's been so frustrating this year, but again, I'm trying to like parse it between this year and looking beyond. Like, I don't know what sort of prospects you can really realistically have for Minshew and Winston, like going forward. They're career backups. And Higgins, you're exactly right. Like when he is, week 1 next year, the wide receiver 1 on the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to be really freaking happy that he's got him. You know what I mean?
I hope that's not true, but yes.
Something like that, a scenario like that is super, feasible. So I think that, I mean, again, it just always feels, I guess because it's a 2025 first round pick.
It's 2 years out, really.
Value than one from next year. But he looks well positioned. If Higgins, I mean, we were talking about the Bengals. I hope, like what you said, some things Browning does well, some he doesn't. Apparently, what he does well is throw to Chase, and what he doesn't do well is throw to Higgins. And like, hopefully, they get him to throw, to Higgins a little more proficiently because he's been super disappointing. I have him in a couple spots, and like I expected way more because I had him the year before, and. So I don't. In regard to Dynasty, I again defer to you guys, but I feel like your boy Funky Bunch is not making it easy for you.
No, he should be letting us win, doggone it. Come on, Funky Bunch, quit making these.
You gotta hope
trades.
Jonathan Taylor comes back like next week. Like that'll really hurt the Zach Moss for trade. So
Well, Drew, what do you think about this one with the 2 starting quarterbacks and Higgins for a 25 first and 2 24 thirds? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably break it down to, do I think that T. Higgins is worth a 25 first, which I'd be fine with that. I do have a stronger affinity for the picks because I like that the picks won't lose value. I think that's part of my philosophy is that will be an insulated value and it will only grow in value as we get closer to the 2025 season. I try to balance that with that the picks are also, they're like currency. It's also meant to be used, right? Your league could fold next year and you could be sitting there holding on to 425 first. But so I think I think T. Higgins for 25 first feels good. And then I wouldn't give any more than a third for either of those backup quarterbacks. Could I get charged more? Absolutely. I would hope that the teams that have those quarterbacks are holding out and squeezing more value out of the contenders and making them pay for the points that they want this year. But in reality, I think a third, or if it's a high third, is fair value for either Minshew or Winston based on what they produce. It's not like either of them is a consistent 15 to 18 points a week. Minshew can give you 25, he can give you 12, he can give you 8. So I think that's kind of baked into that cost. So I think it's pretty fair. If I saw that from the outside, I don't know that I would feel like one person really got way better of a value out of the deal, but I can definitely see why you'd want to do that. If I had the quarterbacks, I'd take whatever I get for them. So if I can get that 25 first and a couple of thirds, and it cost me T. Higgins, who has been frustrating, and we don't know what's going to happen there. Hopefully they're deep at wide receiver, and T. Higgins was their wide receiver 5 or 6 or something like that. But but yeah, I hope you're right, Mike. I hope next year we see him as the first option on a really good team.
I
And
think he's
for
definitely
this
going to
week,
get moved, but it just depends where.
that makes
Sorry,
sense,
Andrew.
right? No, you're
I
good.
really hope not,
Uh,
but you're probably right. I mean, let's be honest. Like the numbers, it's going to be
He's
tough
just
with
going to
Chase
be
and Burrow
it's
both
going to be too
commanding
much
so much
money. How
money.
are they going to do it? You know.
Yeah, they find a way. But what I would need for this week is I need Indianapolis to figure out, like you said, Mike, I need them to figure out how to double team Jamar Chase this week and leave T. Higgins wide open against their third best defender.
That'd be
So
amazing.
That's what we're
that
hoping
is
for.
possible, and I want that's kind of where I wanted to pivot to this too. Like this is the kind of trade that you make thinking, okay, I need Higgins this year. I need the points on my receivers this year, and Higgins has been underwhelming. I'm trading away some future capital for some now points with the quarterbacks, of course, and I'm guessing that those are more like backups even on his team. If he's second, he doesn't need a quarterback, perhaps, but maybe he does. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of this team, but my thought would be like Higgins must think Higgins is going to come back, and I do too. I think Higgins is going to come back. I do kind of think that some of that last week mojo was on that one big play to Chase. Now, granted, he had a lot of catches. Don't get me wrong, but I also think that Chase was, on that 67-yard touchdown or whatever it was. Like that was a lot of those points, and that may not happen every week. So I'm willing to say like maybe it gets spread around. Maybe he has a dud week. I don't know. But the last thing I wanted to say is this is the same kind of trade I've made in a bunch of different leagues over the years. And I end up trading away picks for a player that I put in my lineup who gets a dud and I miss the playoffs. And it's like I make these trades to win, to get the playoff, and then it doesn't happen. And it happens, I feel like it happens to me at least once a year. So this year I've made like very few trades the last couple of weeks. I'm like, nope, I'm sticking with the team I got. I'm not going crazy because sometimes, too many cooks in the kitchen. So that was my thinking on this trade, though. I think it was still a very good value trade for Funky Bunch. Yet again, that's a terrific, in my mind anyway, terrific trade. The only other trading we had in our leagues was in DJ2 this week, where, again, it was a Zach Moss trade. Dynasty Wazoo sent Zach Moss to Dynasty Eeyore for 2 thirds, a 24 third and a 25 third. I know we've talked about Zach Moss already, and I guess, Drew, I'll just kind of kick it to you real quick. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Are 2 thirds for Zach Moss? Does that feel fair?
Yeah, I mean thirds in general, they're get it done pieces. So if 2 thirds get you some of those points, and maybe even quote unquote buy low on Zach Moss this week, because I think we all expected him to do more with the backfield to himself like the first few weeks of the season. So I think that's a very good move for the person that got for Dynasty Eeyore.
Yeah, I think that's Corey. He's been in a lot of chats and leagues and things like that. So I think that I think that's a good trade for Wazoo to get Moss, or sorry, Eeyore to get Moss instead of the 2 thirds that maybe you're just thinking that's the best I can get. I'll take the 2 thirds, but I'd rather have Zach Moss. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. And just to kind of wrap this up too, Junkies 2, we've got Rocky and Scott are 4-9 long out of it. I am 9-4 with 19 victory points, so I'm kind of vying for the definitely in the playoffs. But Andrew Rimmer's just crushing it still with 24 victory points at 11-2. DJ3, the team that we have all together, which is pure chaos, is we're 7-6, tied for 4th. The best hooker is still in the lead at 20 victory points and 10-3. So thanks again, guys, for playing with us this year. It's going to be a fun finish.
Andrew, don't sell yourself short in DJ2. You may be 9-4, but you also have the most points in the league.
I do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. DJ2 is one of my favorite teams. Actually, it's the record is a little bit underwhelming, but I'm doing all right. It's the Forking Shirt Balls. That's one of my favorite team names too. So just I love that's one of my babies, and I'm happy with where that's going. But this is that time of year where I just try to be like, no, we'll see what happens. Because again, chaos around every corner. We've had a ton of injuries, a ton of players. Like we were just talking about T. Higgins, who hasn't done much. Jalen Waddle, who's been kind of underwhelming, right? Like these players that you're putting in your lineups, and you're just like, at what point do I cut bait? And again, there's no one in their right mind. I'm willing to bet my life on this. Nobody was going to start Browning over Hurts last week. And yet that was the smart decision, right? You can never know that. That's the chaos of this game. That's what I love.
Well, like Zappy is going to be this week's Browning. Like he's going to be better than the elite QBs for sure. Like he's got
worth a first. Let's go. Yeah.
Exactly.
I know there was a joke in my home redraft league or keeper league that we have. There was a joke where somebody was like, man, maybe we just trade Burrow for like 6 firsts and just ride Browning. And I'm just like, whoa, buddy, pump the brakes. Like, we're not getting rid of Burrow. Like, let's just breathe. He's not bad.
Browning. There's no such
but
thing.
That's how excited it was. Yeah. I also love that it's 2 JBs, Joe Joe Burrow and Jake Browning and a 6 and a 9. Like they're mirror images of each other.
That's
you know
like
what I mean?
the
it's meant to be.
Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid situation. Apparently, they can only have DKs and JBs.
That's right.
Yeah.
DKTE. That's right. Same thing.
Yeah.
And I know Burrow's birthday is this Sunday, so that's kind of, maybe
nice.
that's a birthday gift. Browning can give them a win. I don't know. We'll see. But
right.
Anyway,
Higgins has been a heartbreaker for me, and Garrett Wilson. Like
Garrett Wilson.
I drafted Garrett Wilson and T. Higgins as my 1 and 2 and Scott Fish, and I was like, I'm going to win this whole thing. And it's just been so. I mean, luckily my 3 and 4 were Debo and Nico, so like, I'm all right. But like, I didn't expect that. Like, I'm literally like, I don't know. I think I'm rolling with Higgins, and Wilson's not even going to start this week. Like for me, like I can't believe it. But he breaks my heart because he's got just all world talent, and like what could have been, what would have been. Had Aaron Rodgers played more than 4 plays, this season. Like it breaks me. But yeah.
I'm right there with you. Well, with that, let's get to our last segment of the night, which is our Find Me a Trade segment. I'd be remiss if I didn't use this audio because, again, it is one of my all-time favorite audios.
Find me a trade. Find me a trade. Find me a trade.
Sounds like a nice you do it a bunch in a row. So I love that. Thank you so much for that, Brian Hart. This week's trade is submitted by John Gates at John H. Gates. I've got the rosters. I'm not going to pull it up because it's just too much effort and it's late. But it is a dynasty league. His team name is Watsunder the Towel, which, I mean, I get it, but that's awkward. It is a 12 flex half PPR tight end premium league where you start 10, 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, tight end, 3 flex, and that pesky super flex where you can start that second quarterback. These were the thoughts that John submitted back in July when he submitted it on the form. So they started this league a month ago. I'm looking to either compete or rebuild, but I don't know which way to go. Feel like Dak has to go, but not sure because I could win with him. Looking for a wide receiver to target or even a running back that's young. Now, this was submitted in the offseason. This league is obviously gone through some stuff, and I did not reach out to John. I got too busy today with real life and work. So I don't know what the standings are. I don't know how his team is doing. I can just base it on vibes. That's all we have here, guys, is vibes. But his team, I think his team is pretty good for a super flex league. I'll go through it real quickly here. We've got Dak Prescott, as he mentioned, Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Tannehill. In a 12-team superflex, that's potentially like 5 or 6 starters if things go right. That's kind of crazy. Running back is where I feel like he's weakest. He's got DeAndre Swift, Jerome Ford, Kenneth Gainwell, Latavius Murray, Jaleel McLaughlin, Kareem Hunt. James Conner is probably his best running back, and I skipped him. So just not a lot of terrific talent there in Dynasty. Receiver, he's got Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua.
Really good receivers.
Puka's terrific. Deontay Johnson, Demario Douglas, Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin, I mentioned, Marquise Brown, like lots of good receivers. So terrific receiver group. Tight end, he's got Evan Ingram, Tyler Conklin, and Trey McBride. Again, in a tight end premium, I like that. I like McBride and Ingram. They're both top 12. I think McBride might be top 4 after this season in Dynasty. So it feels like the obvious weakness is at running back right now. And I think his notes from July are obviously going to be different than today. But he does still have 2 first-round picks actually next year and a second. They only do 2 rounds, which I love. So he's got 2 firsts and a second in 24, 3 firsts and a second in 25. I guess I put mine on here, and I'll start with mine just to sort of see what you guys think. I know his team name has got Watson in it, but I hate Deshaun Watson for so many reasons, and most of them are football-related, but not all of them are. He just looks washed. He looks kind of rusty and crusty and dusty, and I'm not – so I'm kind of like, maybe you can get rid of Watson now while he's injured and, not making any headlines. I don't know. So my trade was going to be to send Deshaun Watson to John Abbott for Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears, kind of that combo running back. That way you've got the lightning in a bottle, perhaps, with Derrick Henry as he's, fading out. But you've got Tyjae Spears to take over that mantle as he retires. I guess, Mike, again, I know it's Dynasty and all that, but just in terms of redraft or in terms of points and Superflex, which side would you rather have, Watson or the Henry Spears running back?
Oh, come on. If he could get that deal, that's crazy. Come on. Because I think Tyjae Spears is, again, he's like Charbonnet, but this guy with full volume as an RB1 could definitely be a star. Like he looks like he could. So I agree. I would take that deal in a second. I would, if I could get rid of Watson and get those 2 guys. Like I know that, Henry's sort of at the end, but he is, 7 feet tall and indestructible. So how maybe he's got 3 more good years. I mean, I don't even know, but yeah, that's a deal I would jump all over if someone offered me.
Now,
those two
I don't
guys.
know if it gets done just like that. I mean, you might have to add something else to this. I'm just
Right.
looking at it as the bones, right? And I think if I can get rid of Watson in a super flex and send a quarterback without getting one back, that's the kind of deal I'd want to do. Like in
Yeah.
super flex, again, it's hard to get a quarterback without giving one up, right? It's hard
Like
to
you
send
said, he's got like
player.
6. You know, he's got Dak, and then he's got
He's
a
got a
couple
bunch
other
of options. Yeah, he's got
starters.
Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott
Murray.
are his starting 2, and Stafford is his third. So the rest of them
Yeah,
are kind of
that's true.
fodder in my mind. Like I'm fine
Yeah.
with that. And again, John Abbott, the team that he's would be trading into, has Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Sam Howell. Like those guys are all okay. He doesn't need a quarterback, but I still think
Right.
that you could look at Howell as like, how long is that going to be a thing? Geno Smith that we talked about, like how long is that going to be a thing? Like all of these guys have question marks. And Watson, maybe he likes Watson. I don't know. But my
Right.
thought process here too is like I would rather have Spears than Henry. So I feel like the other guy would probably do the same. Like you were mentioning, like Spears might be the guy. He's like, nah, I'm not trading Spears. Pick another running back. It's like,
Right.
okay, but that's kind of the piece I want. Is I want a Tajay Spears. I
main
want
piece,
something like
sure.
that. You know. So that's why I'm using this as the bones, and I might be willing to overpay in a sense to get Watson off my team. Like if you have to send Watson in, let's say one of your 2 firsts and 24 for Henry, Spears, and another piece, like a second or something like that. Make some sort of other addition to both sides where that levels out. I'm fine to do that. That's kind of my head on this one. Drew, what are your thoughts? I mean, am I way off, or do you feel like that's a trade you could see getting done?
I think it would get done. It really depends on that other team's perspective on Watson. On paper, he's still a young quarterback.
Yeah.
He's still athletic. He was elite before he missed all this time. To give up Henry at this point, if you don't need him, I think people are looking to move Henry wherever they can. And I think I'm almost leery of taking him on unless I feel like I have the pieces behind. So I'm not giving high picks to get Henry, knowing that
Right.
I don't count on him next year. If I don't get something like Tajay Spears behind him, where I feel like I could still have a little bit of runway, trading for running backs is just so risky.
It's a messy prospect. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's so quick to change. So the other thing is this other John Abbott does have like Justin Jefferson, Christian Kirk, Cortland Sutton. Like he's got some okay receivers there. He's got Travis Kelce, so he's one of those teams that might be contending this year. And this trade makes no sense if you're contending, right? But if he's looking at the future and is kind of like, I'm hating my quarterbacks, or I want to blow this up, or who knows what, right? I think that the only way I would be acquiring Henry, well, it's hard to say, actually. It looks like this team could be, right?
I looked real fast at the other rosters, and I think I would take KBII and Brockies and give you the field on an even money bet. Like, I think those two, one of those two is going to win it for sure, I think, looking at their rosters.
Yeah, Brockies with Lamar Jackson and CJ Stroud. I noticed that too. Like, that's a hell of a duo.
Yeah, look at the other guy, KBII, that team. Yeah. He's going to be
Patrick Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa. That's terrific.
He's got McCaffrey. He's got
Tank Dell. Yeah. So again, this is where we see these. Sometimes these leagues, we're seeing a bunch of these every week. We do one of these these leagues here, Mike, and it's interesting to see the different builds on teams. Sometimes and again, this is a startup. It just happened. That helps too, right? Like a startup, usually everything is very even. Everything is kind of still even keel from the one draft. There's only been one season. We've seen some leagues that are in their 10th season or something crazy, and it's like. You have studs and duds. You've got some teams that are just scraping together nickels to make something happen. And this team, all of these teams look pretty even. I'm with you. There are a couple, but
it is interesting to me as a guy, again, on the outside looking in, that those two teams that look to be the favorites, they have the least amount of draft picks. So they've clearly made moves along the way here this season, thinking that they were favorites to win.
Yeah.
That's one of the many strategies. Yeah.
I'm looking for the first time here. I think what catches my eye when you're talking, Andrew, about running backs, somebody we mentioned earlier, I'd be looking at M. Terza's team, who has Derek Carr, Justin Fields, and Desmond Ridder at quarterback. And I think I would see if Watson, what would I need to add to Watson to get a Kyren Williams?
Wow,
that's not a bad pick.
I'm curious what you guys think. What's the gap there? Again, so much of it depends on what you think of Watson. If you're M. Terza, but. He clearly doesn't need running back because he's nowhere near competing with this roster at this point.
Yep.
You can take care of, a potentially elite quarterback for his team because Derek Carr and Desmond Ridder they're backups next year, probably, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if they
back.
start next year. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
That trade was a
So-
lot. There was actually there was dissent on Kyron before he came back.
Yeah,
He runs a 4.6. He's small. He was
Mm-hmm.
like, he's a third day guy. Like, he's not the real, And I was like, I don't know. Like, he's always where they expect him to be. They love him. The coach and Stafford love the guy. Like, I think he might be really, really serviceable and beyond. So I think that trade was a lot more doable while he was injured. But now
you're
it's
right.
clear. It's clear that the Kyron, those who were championing Kyron are looking like we were smart. But if I could get Kyron for Deshaun again, and I know that running backs have less value just intrinsically, but smash.
Well, what about like Devon Chan too? Like that's another person I might be willing to target in a Watson trade because that one's got Neisenberg has Devon Chan, but his quarterbacks are Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Jake Browning, CJ Beathard, Jimmy Garoppolo. Like it's kind of like, and Lawrence obviously got hurt. It looks like he's going to play.
What about Watson and Ingram for someone like a Chan? Like you got to give. To me, it just seems. And again, this is not my bailiwick, but it just seems like I would be like, are you kidding? You want Devin Chan for Deshaun Watson? I mean,
that's the thing though, and this is one of the things.
The last time he played good ball was like 2021, right? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, and that's why now might not be the best time to make this trade with Watson, right? Because he's not playing, he's not scoring any points, and rosters may not matter for some of these teams. So that's the other thing. Context is everything, right?
Right.
But I don't mind sending the offer just to kind of see what happens.
Exactly.
And I've learned this too from being in a number of leagues. Every league is its own market, right? Sometimes I'll see a league get done in one, or I'll see a trade get done in one league, and I'm like, holy crap, that's all that they cost. And I'll send it in the other league, and the guy's like, oh, are you kidding me? I'm like, okay, good. So we agree that was a terrific trade for this guy. We're just on the same page on value. But like, there's crazy people out there. You never know.
Exactly.
You might as well send the damn offer. Like, what are they going to do? Reject it? Great. Where it was anyway.
I'm in two auction, 2 QB leagues, and the value on QBs is completely different. In both of them. Like one of them, they're the highest valued position player, and in the other, they're like middle of the road. It's like, what is going on here?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why I always say to people, like, send the offer. Just send it, see what happens, let them counter, let them reject. Like or just send a message, right? You don't have to send a trade blind, but like, just go see what you can do. You never know. Like, honestly, I'd rather be told no than assume no and someone else get a better deal. And I've talked about this before, Drew. I know you felt this too, where you see a trade come through, you're like, son of a, that's all that you were looking for Puka was a second. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? I would have easily given us like, what? I didn't think of that. Like, so be the first there. That's the whole thing. You never know. Somebody might have an entirely different opinion on a player, and that's fine. That's good. That's what you're looking for. Any other trades or any other things you want to mention with these teams before we call it a night here, boys? I think we did a pretty good job. I think we helped a lot. I think hopefully, John, you got some ideas. I think we're all on the same page of sending Watson. I think that's pretty clear. I think your team is definitely contending, and I'm really hoping that you can pull it down this year and take a title home. That would be a lot of fun to hear. But with that, I guess, Mike, I want to kick it to you first. Where can people find you?
So I come off a little like the mean guy that was like, I don't think he's contending. Like I just flat.
No, that's drama.
I mean,
Mike.
I think he's got a good team, but look at just on starting rosters. To me, it looks like those other two teams are the odds-on favorites. But I think he has fantastic wide receivers. I love Dak Prescott. Keep him. You've got 2 tight ends. Trade one of them. Like you're looking good to like improve and be, right there.
You got a lot of options. Yep. And even if you're not contending, you've got a good long-term team too.
Picks, like you're going to be right there next year. It looks like. Well,
and I've seen a bunch of teams that I have myself that are really great on paper, but are 6 and 7. And I'm like, how did that, like, what? Because bad luck, right? Just, you never know. You run into a buzzsaw sometimes. So, but with that though, Mike, I want to kick it back to you to get us out of here. Where can people find you on the X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days? And what do you got going on?
I still call it Twitter because I'm just an old man. And I liked it when it was Twitter and tweets and retweets. I thought the branding was right on. I don't understand why someone would, it was always successful. But anyway, I'm at Mike Stoyanov, I think. You can definitely search
Michael
me.
Stoyanov. Yeah.
Am I at Michael Stoyanov on Twitter? I'm at Michael Stoyanov on Twitter. I guess I'm at Michael Stoyanov on Instagram, but I never go there, so don't go there.
That's great.
But yeah, that's it. I don't really go a lot of places, and I really only tweet about fantasy football. So,
well, That's fine. I don't mind that at all. Do you have any projects you're working on or anything you're working on in real life?
No, well,
that
the strike, we were all on strike, writers and actors,
Mm-hmm.
for months and months, and that just ended. So like production is just kicking up again, but I have nothing to report at this point, unfortunately.
Nothing to report.
Now
Okay.
it's the holiday season, so no one's, Hollywood, they take immensely long vacations and then like work a little bit, and then there's more vacation. So there's a lot of downtime. So right now we're coming off a strike, and it's the holiday season downtime. So have me back on February, March, and hopefully we'll have something exciting to share.
So it's the perfect
Sounds
time
good.
to start a dynasty league, is what I'm hearing.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and just because I feel bad, it is Mike Stoyanov. I apologize. It is. I double checked. I fact checked. It is. You're correct. I should be trusting you. It's your Twitter handle, so that makes total sense. I apologize.
My Venmo is at Michael Stoyanov. If someone wants to send me money, that's
how you do it. If you liked his advice tonight, folks. But no, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate that, and maybe we'll have you on after you get that Dynasty best ball started up, and we can kind of judge your team and see what kind of trades we can find for you
before the draft, and you guys can help me.
That's fine too. Yeah, I don't mind that.
We're
always available anytime. Hit us up. Hit us up in the
That's
DMs.
right.
We can help
Drew,
you out.
Andrew, thank you so much.
But with that,
for
you can.
honestly.
Oh yeah, no, great for being here. And again, you can follow us at Dynasty Junkies. Follow the DAP Network at DAP_network. You can follow me at Andrew Hall FF. You can follow Drew at DR_PRA. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to you to get us out of here tonight, Drew.
Junkies out.